It is time for another episode of By All Means right here on Western Reserve Radio. It is Season 4, Episode 10, 1 to 28 overall. Congratulations to our friends from Dump and Chase who will celebrate their 100th episode later on this week. Our show is always presented by Mill Creek Golf Course. Visit millcreekmetroparks.org for more information. Find us on Facebook, Western Reserve Radio, on Twitter at WR_radio. Download the Live 365 or TuneIn app. Go to westernreserveradio.com. Of course, all part of the iMeda1 network. Going to talk some broadcasting like we tend to do on this show quite frequently. And we're going to be joined by Richie Giuliano, who joins us on the phone, who has done a lot of different broadcasting. And I'm sure you've heard his voice in the Valley over the last couple of years. And he's going to be doing some more broadcasting this summer that we'll get to a little bit later. But I got to ask you, Richie, because when I went to YSU, there was no sports broadcasting department. So what has that been like to have gone through it, now graduated, and moving yourself into the professional ranks this summer?
Mark, I'll tell you this. It's an unbelievable experience, especially for local broadcasters in this area, because like you said, when you went to college, it wasn't a program. And they just built this thing up in the last 10 years. And it keeps growing every single year when it comes to the amount of people that enroll into the sports broadcasting department and putting more funds into the broadcasting department, whether that would be in the studio, outside of the classroom, cameras, whatever the students need to progress as they move from a freshman to a senior. But it was an unbelievable experience for me, being able to be a platform on ESPN Plus and call play-by-play there for women's basketball, for volleyball, for softball, whatever they needed at Youngstown State, I was willing to do. And then also the connection and partnership with the sports broadcasting program at Youngstown State, now with YSN, who does the baseball games for the Penguins. So there's unlimited amounts of experience you could have as a student, whether you're a freshman, a junior, whatever you may be. There's unbelievable experiences you could get at Youngstown State.
And the thing that I like about it is it's given you opportunities to call sports that aren't necessarily the mainstream, the football, baseball, basketball, but you add softball, volleyball, lacrosse, all the other sports that are broadcast. That kind of gives you an edge going out into the real world, saying, I've called these sports that a lot of other people have not had a chance to have the experience to call those.
You're 100% right. I've got 7 on my resume right now, and that stands out to an employer when you're doing interviews. I think having multiple sports outside of just baseball and basketball helps a lot, because you gather different information. You really learn how to prepare for a broadcast when it's something you're unfamiliar with. One of my first broadcasts was the first ever Youngstown State broadcast for women's lacrosse. It was their first year. One of the broadcasters went down sick. I stepped in that day. I did about a day and a half of preparation on lacrosse, because us in Ohio here, we're not very familiar with the sport as to those on the Eastern Coast where it's very popular, especially in the ACC conference. So the first ever Youngstown State game on ESPN Plus, I had the responsibility to do that, and I knew nothing about the game of lacrosse before that broadcast. So it really teaches you a lot of how to prepare, and also different terminology that goes with different games. And it's fun because softball I learned a lot of. Volleyball, which I took the responsibilities of play-by-play my sophomore year, that was another sport I wasn't very familiar with. And then I kind of jumped in, and I really started to love the sport, just doing a lot of research on it and learning all the new rules and little tidbits that go with it. But yeah, it does give you an edge, especially because at Youngstown State, it's kind of free reign. They don't have a certain broadcaster unless it's Rob Schmidt, who does a fantastic job on the men's basketball side, and Dre Smith, who does the women's basketball radio. Outside of that, the opportunities are endless for a Youngstown State student, because you could do anything from lacrosse to soccer to volleyball, you name it. There's opportunity out there for you.
I can tell you a friend of mine he's the voice of the Seattle Kraken on the radio side. And he volunteered in college at Bowling Green to call hockey because he figured he would get a chance to call hockey first. That volunteering, calling hockey several years ago, has developed into him being an NHL announcer for the expansion Kraken. So when the opportunities are there, you got to take them.
100% right. You never know where this business can go and where, the sports broadcasting industry will lead you to. I never thought when I applied, to go to college at Youngstown State that I would be calling lacrosse. Never in my imagination did I imagine I was going to call soccer and softball, volleyball, and basketball all in the same season. I'm a baseball guy at heart. I played baseball in high school. That was kind of my set goal going to Youngstown State, saying, hey, I really want to get into YSU baseball. And I was able to do that, but I never thought that I was going to be able to call 5+ sports at Youngstown State University. And you know what? It's opened my eyes. I think it's helped me personally as a broadcaster because there's been certain days where, I'm tired. I'm just done with a 3-game series and I got to flip the page quickly and turn around for a broadcast the next day, or it could be a doubleheader. So you're right. You never know where this industry can take you. Who knows? Maybe in 10 years, I'll be doing some soccer on, ACC network. You really never know.
You mentioned you've done baseball the last several years for YSU, and you look at that, that non-conference schedule that they play the last few years. Boy, you've had a chance to go to a lot of terrific college baseball venues, especially in the South.
100%. When you look at their non-conference schedule, I think Coach Dan Bertolini does a terrific job of trying to get his players acclimated with big environments earlier in the season. You go back to 2021 when they played at LSU, which was an experience I'll never forget, probably one of my favorite college baseball parks I've ever been to. You go back 2 years before that in 2019 when they traveled to play Mississippi State. And that was the first ever game at the newly renovated and new field for Mississippi State that Youngstown State was able to take part in. So they played in some unbelievable venues. We just traveled a couple weeks ago to go play in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and play Wake Forest. They put a couple of $1 million into their baseball facility down there as well. So, the Youngstown State player has been blessed with the opportunity to travel outside of the state of Ohio, go down south, and really see some of the premier baseball facilities and some of the best college baseball players in the country.
It's interesting because, you look at, opportunities to, while you're at LSU or while you're at some of these other venues, like I got to know LSU's announcer through a Facebook group of broadcasters, Chris Blair, who has, he does football, baseball, basketball, and I've had him, listen to my tapes just so, because you're always trying to get better. And that's the exciting part about this. You get not only a chance to call great games, but you get to meet and network with people in the industry as you go.
You do. I just had a good relationship with the Illinois broadcaster, Scott Beatty, who actually stayed in the same hotel as us. So we were able to interact over the weekend and, share ideas. And, he turned me on to the new scorebook that I'm going to use, the Bob Carpenter scorebook, which you've probably heard of doing minor league baseball for a couple of years with the Scrappers. So you never know who you're going to run into. It's always great to network because, down the line, I've met broadcasters that I've seen a second, third time around, especially in our league. Like I formed a really good relationship with Scott Warris, who does the men's basketball play-by-play for Milwaukee up in Wisconsin. And I'm going to see him again this weekend because YSU's traveling to play Milwaukee in a 3-game series there in Wisconsin. So, networking is key in this industry, and that would be a big point of emphasis I have for younger broadcasters is to always network because you never know who knows somebody else. That's how I got the job in Tennessee. I know we're going to touch on that, but that's how I got that job because I knew somebody who knew the director of broadcasting there and got me in. So networking is really key in this industry. It's usually about who you know and what you don't know.
And it's interesting too. I know, we're separated by, 10, 15 years, maybe even more. But who are some of the broadcasters, maybe past or current, that you, I don't want to say emulated, but you looked up to and you maybe say, I like the way they did that, and you kind of incorporate that into your own style?
I think this is a very popular take, but Tom Hamilton for the Guardians was one of my favorite announcers growing up as a kid. My stepfather kind of turned me on to him when I was younger. He would listen to the games on his way to work on the radio. And, whenever we would drive on our way to a baseball game or a tournament, wherever we would go, we would have it on. And I'm a diehard Indian/Guardians fan, whatever you want to call them. And, Tom Hamilton, I think, is one of the best in the business. So that's a guy that I've always looked up to, and I tried to kind of replicate some of the things that he does in the broadcast. And then another guy that I really love listening to, and he now calls San Diego State basketball. So it's kind of a tough adjustment for me to listen to him because it's online, and San Diego State out in the Mountain West usually starts at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, so about when I'm about to go to bed. But that's a guy that I turn on. He's in the San Diego Padres Hall of Fame. He was their baseball broadcaster for a long time, and now he calls San Diego State basketball. But that's another guy that kind of brings comedy to his broadcast. He makes jokes. He talks about the fans. He involves the audience into his conversation. So those are some of the guys that I've looked up to, throughout my journey here in the last 4 years when I've become a broadcaster, and really people I love to listen to. I could sit there and listen to Ted Leitner or Tom Hamilton talk for hours and hours without getting bored.
And the industry has really changed, especially like you look at a situation with how the sport has really changed and how the Savannah Bananas have changed the game of baseball. And we've had their play-by-play guy on this show a few weeks back, and it's one of those where Biko Scala it's more of an entertainment than it is a play-by-play broadcast. So the sport and the style of calling games has really changed over the years.
100%. And you see on the TV side of things, the entertainment value. I think that when I watch, Fox and Valley and all these regional and nationwide networks, they put a lot of concentration into their graphic system. You saw the NFL intros and all the cartoons that they had. NHL just did a whole cartoon broadcast, almost like an animation with the New York Rangers for the entertainment value of it, because they do so many hockey games a year. It could get cut and dry after a while, but bringing in almost like a cartoon broadcast on the ice was really cool. So entertainment is becoming, part of the TV industry because you have a lot of younger generational people who are now having shorter attention spans, and they struggle to sit through a 9-inning baseball game. So I think a lot of the networks around the country are trying to bring different aspects to broadcast other than, this guy's batting 320 or he shoots 70% from the free throw line. They're trying to find different storylines and different entertainment values that they can bring to the audience back home that is also engaging to us when we're watching the game on TV and or listening on the radio.
Couple minutes left with Richie Giuliano, who's called multiple sports for Youngstown State, especially baseball over the last several years. So we kind of alluded to it. You've got yourself a pretty exciting opportunity this summer to dive into minor league baseball.
Yeah, I'm really excited, Mark. Thanks for bringing it up. I was lucky. I'm counting my blessings that I was able to advance to the next level because you never know when you're going to get an opportunity like this in your life, and I just had to take it. I love what I do here at Youngstown State, and I've loved my time with the Scrappers. But this was a opportunity I couldn't turn down, and it was with a Double-A team in Tennessee and Knoxville with the Smokies. So I'm going to join their broadcasting team for the summer, making a lot of road trips, doing a lot of the media relations side of things, as well as being an on-air talent. So that was an opportunity I was so excited for, and hopefully this next step will lead to greener pastures. And I'm going to come back here in Youngstown in October and continue to do stuff around the Valley. But this summer, I think it's going to teach me a lot. You know a lot about traveling, New York Penn League back in the day, and this is double that in games. So it's going to be a long summer, but it's going to be a fun one for sure.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for you. I'm sure a lot of us back here locally be able to listen online. All I can tell you is there's a lot of really early day games in the minors, so it's always difficult to get yourself fired up for a 10:30 or 11 o'clock first pitch in the morning, but lots of coffee always helps.
100%. And you asked me earlier off air if I play MLB The Show. I'm going to have to find some hobby to fulfill these bus rides because you know how lengthy they could be, up to 7-8 hours. You're traveling constantly, sometimes 2 weeks, in a row on a bus because the minor league budget, they don't travel like the All-Stars in the MLB. They're busing everywhere. So, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a challenge, which I'm looking forward to the most is actually the challenging part of doing all the media relations, doing the game notes, writing the press releases for the team, and then also having to work with Marquee Sports Network and our radio network to make a great broadcast, both on the TV side of things and on the radio side.
Looks like you've got some great opportunities out in front. We will be following along and being, pay attention as we go. I've watched a lot of the ladies' basketball games on ESPN3, listened to a lot of the baseball. I know you do a fantastic job, and looking forward to hearing you at the next level. So congratulations on the opportunities that are in front of you.
Mark, appreciate it. I appreciated your note a couple years back when you sent that you were listening to YSU baseball and you were enjoying it. That's how we got in contact. So I appreciate, your support of this local area here in the Mahoning Valley, and thank you for having me on here today.
All right, we appreciate it. That is Richie Giuliano. Check him out with YSU baseball, and he'll be in the minors at the AA level. So he'll have the 142-game season to deal with on top of the travel. We appreciate his time with us today. We've got a break coming up. We'll come back. We'll dive into what's trending next on By All Means.
Located in Applewood Estates in Boardman Township, the Applewood Swim and Tennis Club offers a pleasant family environment. Choose a membership that meets your needs and enjoy a relaxing venue that includes not only swimming for the family, but also youth activities such as competitive swimming, tennis, and more. Enjoy the friendly atmosphere all summer long with the staff and members of the Applewood Swim and Tennis Club. For more information, go to applewoodswimandtennis.com or call 330-953-2833.
Accidents happen. That's why you need Repair That Glass. Specializing in windshield replacement and all other auto glass, we offer a full range of automotive glass repairs. Our technicians can do everything from minor chip repair to a complete replacement. Your windows don't go up or down, they can fix that too, along with custom glass work and antiques. Repair That Glass is a family-run business for over 40 years. Repair That Glass. Call for your appointment now at 330-534-3192.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday 10 to 4 and Saturday 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
Did you miss the last Youngstown Phantoms hockey game? Catch up with the Dump and Chase podcast.
Visiting youngstownphantoms.com, or you can call the Phantoms box office. So tickets are... You son of a... Phantoms box office. Or you can call the Phantoms box office at 330-747-PUCK. That is 330-747-7825.
Yay! Alrighty. The Dump and Chase podcast, Wednesdays at 5, right here on Western Reserve Radio and the iMedia1 network.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio at westernreserveradio.com on the Live 365 network and the Live 365 app.
Right back here on By All Means. Thank you to Richie Giuliano, who joined us talking broadcasting, as you can hear him on the call of YSU baseball for the rest of this season. He mentioned the Penguins on the road at Milwaukee this weekend for a set of 3. So, Dave, let's dive into what's trending. And, of course, that means our wrapping up of our conversations we've had a lot of this year about Youngstown State men's basketball. They fell to number 1 seed Oklahoma State at Beagley on Wednesday, 69-64. They had a slim lead at the break, but was not able to hold on to that lead. They fell to the Oklahoma State Cowboys, 69-64. Nonetheless, 24-10, a regular season conference championship and the first ever berth in the NIT in school history.
Yeah, you can't knock what they did with the season. I really thought that they kept that game close against Oklahoma State, but the Cowboys just a little bit better in the second half. I was really hoping YSU was going to pull the upset in that game. At the half, it really looked like they were going to. Everything seemed to be clicking fairly well, but still they kept it close. I mean, it could have been a lot bigger of a blowout than it was, and ending that game down by 5 is nothing to shake a stick at. Those guys put their heart into that game and really put on a good thing.
And you know what? That roster for Oklahoma State, like Rob Schmidt said when he joined us last week, big. 7 foot, 6'10", 6'9", and the biggest player on YSU's roster that plays, I'm going to say, is 6'8" or 6'9". So they definitely had a size advantage. And another great game from Dwayne Cohill and those seniors that are now out of eligibility, that finished up their careers, had a fantastic season to do that. And you know what? You look at the last 5-6 games, however many it was, a lot of credit has to go to the city of Youngstown because they came out in full force to support the Penguins down the stretch when they needed it most to have a home court advantage.
Yeah, they did. The sixth man was definitely there. They kept it alive. They kept that team going. And you know what? And the fans put them on their shoulders, and that's what it takes in Youngstown. And we do. We get behind our sports teams, whether it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, we did the state championship games, and I don't know if you noticed, but I looked across the way and just the other schools that showed up to root on Canfield and South Range during those 2 games on a Friday morning. It was phenomenal what other schools were there. I know I saw Poland. I know I saw Howland. I know I saw Hubbard jacket. There was at least one Rayan jacket that I saw. So, you know what? This valley comes out for its sports teams, and they really do get behind them.
And you know what? While you were producing Game 2 for us that day, my partner Dave Clark and I actually went down to the concession stand in the stadium to get food for everybody, and we saw that exact same thing. You saw varsity jackets, shirts and sweatshirts and hats from teams all over the valley because, I mean, let's face it, it wasn't just one local team. It wasn't 2 local teams. It was 3 local teams that played for state championships this past year, and I don't know if we will ever experience something like that again, but that's one of the things I've always loved about the high school football scene in this area, and not even just the state championships or the playoffs, but if you're a team playing on Thursday or playing on Saturday, or some teams play on Saturday afternoon, not only do you see other coaches there scouting, but you see players and fans of other teams just out to check out good high school football.
Right, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, we've been doing this for years, doing high school games. I mean, you've been doing longer than me, but I've been with you for at least
26 years.
I've been with you for at least 20 of that. So
it feels like it. Yeah, we've been doing this in many different forms for a long time.
Right, and we've done Thursday, and for some reason we always do a Thursday game. And
talk to the guy that makes the schedule, Dave. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. But, and you go out for those Thursday games and those Saturday games, and you will see just about every school that's not playing on Friday is at that Thursday game. Because there's only a few of them. There's only 1 or 2 usually that kick the season off on a Thursday. So
I think that's smart. More schools should do that because, if it's playing on Saturday nights or Saturday afternoons might be tougher because you got Youngstown State and Ohio State and whatever other college teams you root for.
Right.
But you know what? If you play on a Thursday night, and we've seen Niles and Howland kick things off on Thursday night the last few years against each other. Mm-hmm. You usually get a great crowd too.
Yeah, you do. You usually you pack the place because every other team is. Usually they're finishing up practice, and then you'll see the kids show up. They got their Letterman's jackets on, or they got their high school T-shirts on, or whatever, and they're coming out and they're watching these games. Because you know what? Half the time they end up playing these teams later in the season. So you actually get a feel of literally what they're doing on the field. So
And there's nothing like watching something in person to really kind of, I mean, you can watch film, but seeing it in person gives you a complete advantage over watching game film.
Oh, that's why
Phantoms,
scouts do it.
right?
They go
Phantoms
and watch them live.
split over the weekend, winning on Thursday, losing on Friday to the Dubuque Fighting Saints. They've now won 7 of their last 10. They are in a tie for second place. The standings right now have them listed in third, 5 points out of first. And they've got big games against the Madison Capitals coming up this weekend.
Yeah, and it's going to be another one of those good weekends where Madison's not real high in the standings, but Madison can pull out a win when you least expect it. And we're just hoping that the Phantoms can keep capitalizing on where they're at. Hopefully, the developmental team can drop a game or two. Maybe even Chicago can drop a game or two because it's a real tight race right now for the USHL East Conference. So,
and no pun intended there at all, right?
no pun intended at all.
Capitalizing on their opportunities while playing the Capitals
yes,
this weekend.
Yes, no pun intended.
It just conveniently worked out that way. So, I mean, I know what what I'm going to say about this is if there's baseball, I'm watching it. Whether, I can't tell you how many games I've watched, Grove City, Ohio State, YSU. I've watched a lot of streaming baseball already this year. I have watched a lot of the WBC that wraps up tonight in Miami with the Team Japan, Samurai Japan, and the United States meeting in the finals. And you know what? You look back and most of these games, close to or sellout crowds. The opening round, the pool play round, when they played last in 2017, they had just over 500,000 fans when you combined all the sites for pool play. Dave, that number doubled this year to over 1 million fans watching the early round games, and all of the semifinals and tonight's championship game in Miami sold out. And we've seen players make comments like, I don't understand why the best players, why the stars aren't playing on this team. Would you rather play in an environment like this? Would you rather play, a boring spring training game? And they have gotten the stars to come out this year to play, maybe not on the pitching side as much as the position players, slash hitters. But it's going to be quite an interesting matchup tonight against Japan. Will Ohtani pitch in relief? Will he not pitch in relief? Will Trout get to face Ohtani, as teammates on the Angels? Can the United States repeat under Mark DeRosa as the manager? I think it's good baseball. The only thing that's a little difficult, and I understand why they did it, and Major League Baseball made a lot of ridiculous rule changes going into this season. Some I like, some I absolutely hate. They are playing under the old rules, the smaller bases, the shift, everything that we experienced the last several years. And it's been highly competitive for the most part, high caliber baseball games. Have we seen some blowouts? Sure, we have. A couple of times, Japan put up 22 runs in a game. The U.S. put up 15 in a game against Canada. But, I mean, here's the biggest thing, and I know I've kind of rambled here for a minute. The biggest problem about this tournament is there is no perfect time to play it for everyone.
No.
You can't shut down in the middle of the Major League season, in the middle of, the Nippon League in Japan or any of the other multiple, international leagues that are played, Australia, Mexico, Venezuela. There's no perfect time. So this is the best thing that they've been able to work out. Yes, have there been some unfortunate severe injuries to players? There has been. But when you put the uniform on, you put the cleats on, there's a chance that could happen no matter what.
Oh, yeah, and it doesn't matter where you're at. Heck, you could twist an ankle walking down the steps out of your house. I mean, it's happened.
We saw the Mets pitcher injure, lower body injury after celebrating a victory for his country, and now he's out for the season. Jose Altuve got hit by a pitch. He's probably out for a good portion, if not all of the season. It's unfortunate, but you can't wrap these guys in bubble wrap while they're playing.
No, and you can't deny them playing for their country either. I mean, that's national pride. And a lot of these baseball players have it, and then by rights they should. So you can't penalize somebody for playing for their home team. And like you said, you can't wrap them in bubble wrap. Stuff happens. Is it horrible that it happens? Yes. If I remember right, years ago, the Indians had quite a really good-looking pitching staff going into spring training, and there was a boating accident, and the Indians pitching staff took a big hit, and the Indians went really down that year. But stuff happens. You can't. They've had guys in spring training that have gone to their hotel rooms and never woke up again. It's happened. So
You know
you
what?
just
And
can't bank on everything.
I'll tell you the truth. Was I, part of me, Clase did not play for his country. Jose Ramirez did not play for his. Was there a little part of me that was like, okay, you don't have to worry about them getting hurt in this tournament? There was. Would they have been big additions to their country's teams? They also would have been. But, Ramirez is coming off the thumb injury last year that, if it was any other person, probably would have missed multiple months and had surgery. But, he played through it. They got to the postseason. And, now he's, trying to be completely healthy for the start of this season. So, you know what? I'm looking forward to watching tonight's game. And high quality, good baseball. I think it's, I don't know if it's the two best teams, but I think it's, it's the two teams that earned their way to the championship. So, the Japanese team has not suffered a loss. The U.S. team lost to Mexico in their first game, and then was able to battle back to get out of the way to the championship game tonight. That is a just after 7 o'clock first pitch between the U.S. and Japan on FS1, if you have that on your cable or your satellite provider. We got another timeout coming up here in just a few minutes, and we will come back. We'll talk some college hoops with Paul Molkeski. That's up next here on By All Means.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier. Then make sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday 10 to 4 and Saturday 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Golf in the Mahoning Valley starts at Mill Creek Golf Course. Mill Creek Golf Course is the host venue for the AJGA PGA Hope Program, 8 high school teams, and 2 collegiate teams. Mill Creek Golf Course is your Callaway certified golf club fitting facility. It was named the PGA of America's National Merchandiser of the Year for a public facility 2022. Book your tee time at 330-740-7112 or online at millcreekmetroparks.org.
The fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier. Then make sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday 10 to 4 and Saturday 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Sandrock Concrete specializes in all types of concrete, driveways, sidewalks, basements, and garages. We also do stamp-colored concrete in many different designs. We do interior and exterior stonework, regular brick and block work. Sandrock Concrete is fully insured. Call Jerry Sandrock at 330-506-0013 for an estimate. Also find them on Facebook at Sandrock Concrete LLC. Sandrock Concrete, where you deal with the owner all the time.
Did you miss the last Youngstown Phantoms hockey game? Catch up with the Dump and Chase podcast.
He's a pretty big guy, and he was the only one with hair. I am, of course, talking about assistant coach Brandon Gawkin. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for all your support. It's great, the stuff that you guys do and how much coverage you bring. I know we appreciate it a lot as a coaching staff, and our guys really appreciate it. So thank you so much for putting all this hard work in.
The Dump and Chase podcast, Wednesdays at 5, right here on Western Reserve Radio and the iMedia1 network.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio, home of the Youngstown Phantoms, on the Live 365 network and the Live 365 app.
By all means, continues here on the iMedia1 network, part of Western Reserve Radio, and we are joined on the phone by Paul Mulkeski. We talked Cavs with him last time. We'll talk a little college basketball, and I don't know about you, Paul, but my bracket found a home in the trash pretty quick after the first couple of rounds.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are, and we talked a little earlier. I'm a Kansas alum, and I was so excited that they were in the West Division bracket because if they win 2 games, they come here to Vegas to play, and I actually will be able to go to the game and have friends coming in, and that went to the wayside really fast.
You look at the first couple of rounds, we see, we were talking about my favorite team, Arizona, losing to Princeton. We saw Purdue lose, one losing into a 16. What is it about the game in its current state, do you think, that has really kind of, not leveled the playing field, but really given the lower seeds an opportunity to have a chance to win on any given night?
I'll tell you exactly. It's called the transfer portal, and half the players after the season go in the transfer portal, and anybody can pick them up. And so that instead of recruiting high school kids that might help you in a couple of years, you get players out of the transfer portal that can help you immediately. And I think that evens the playing field a lot.
And you look at it, and I kind of look at it from both, both sides of it. Which is better for the game? Is it better for the upsets and to see some of these smaller schools pull off big wins, or is it better, for the blue bloods, the Kansases, the Dukes, the North Carolinas, those teams to continue to win and dominate like they used to?
Well, I think it's a combination. I think in general, everybody likes an underdog and everybody likes upset, and that's this time of year. That's why they call it March Madness, and but also people want to see the Kansases and the North Carolinas and those teams in there also. So I think there's a good combination of that. I mean, when you look at the brackets, you have in one bracket moving on to the Sweet 16. You have Miami as a 5, Houston as a 1, Xavier as a 3, and Texas as a 2. So it pretty much played out the way it was. And then you have another bracket where Alabama, number 1, is still in. San Diego State at a 5, Princeton at a 15, and Creighton at a 6. It's kind of like the West in the NBA, the Wild Wild West. So I think it's a good combination of, you still got number 1s in Houston and Alabama. But you also have, the Princetons and the, Miami's and teams like that are still in, Creighton, San Diego State. So I think it's a good mix right now.
Yeah, when you look at the way things have kind of played out this year, a lot of times, the experts say, pick an 11 to pull an upset, or maybe a 12, but we've seen a 15, a 16 win, and it's one of those where they go on a little bit of run, but then don't you usually feel like the elite teams kind of rise to the top the further we get into the tournament?
Yeah, and I think it has to do with, you need to look at the teams overall and their overall season. I mean, they didn't make it to the Sweet 16, but everybody forgot about Auburn, who won the first game, because they were number 1 early in the year, so they didn't become terrible. You have to look at injuries too, how they affected. But I always tell people, college basketball, the players they're kids. They're 17, 18-year-old kids. So, they can be affected any time that, a girlfriend breaks up with them or something else happens. You never know how they perform. And with March Madness, as we know, it's one and done. So, you have one bad night, one bad game, and you're done.
Paul, I'm curious your thought on, you see some experts will say you got to have good guard play to make a deep run in the tournament. Others will say, well, if you have a dominant post player, you can make a run in the tournament. And as a post player that you were in your college and NBA career, what do you think is more important, or do they kind of have to work hand in hand to make a deep run?
I think they have to work hand in hand. You you have to have good guard play for sure. You got to be able to score, but you also have big enough bodies to handle, big teams that are coming through. And, it's a key, just like the NBA is, you can't have, four great guards and no other position or no bigs. So, I think it's the same in college basketball. And I also look at this time of year, I like to look at the teams that have experience. So you have teams with seniors and fifth year seniors and, that tend to have been around and especially if they've been with good programs before, big time programs, those are the teams that can do damage. And, I know Princeton, they're a 15 seed and, but they have guys that have been in school for 2, 3, 4 years. And, I look at from now on, I look at, teams like Princeton or Creighton, Princeton beat Arizona and Mizzou. So those are two high level teams. So I don't think they're scared about playing anybody anymore, as opposed to, someone, beating, like Miami beat Drake and Drake is one of my underdogs because they had a lot of older players, but they beat Drake in Indiana, which Indiana's an okay team, but, at the same point, they're not like some of the other teams. And, I also look at teams like Michigan State. Michigan State's been around a long time. They have a great coach, and they played in a great conference. So, they got a 7th seed, but, I don't see it as that.
When you look at the state of the game, whether it be college or even the NBA, you don't see a lot of dominant big men that are primarily post players. I mean, you see, Jokic or Embiid or those guys stepping out and shooting threes as the stretch five. Why do you think there's not a lot of low block scoring like that? Is it the fact that the 3-point shot has become so popular in the game? Is it that there's not a lot of guards that can really feed the post and set up scores, especially at the college level? What do you look at that has been the issue with that?
Well, I think number one, size does matter at whatever level you're in, especially NBA, because let's see the top MVP candidates, right? Joker, Embiid, Giannis, all 7-footers. And it's interesting to me that in the NBA draft, they draft guards and wings before bigs. But, look at the teams. I mean, those guys are 7-footers. They just play a different way. And one of the differences is back in the day when I played, post players played in the low post. But now with defenses and how long and athletic players are, if you pass it to someone, even an Embiid in the low post, it's easier to double team him with length and come from different angles. So now you see those guys, even the Joker, they're posting up on the elbows because it's harder to double team from the elbow. So, bigs are still a big part of the game. It's just changed the way they play a little bit, but you got to have a rim protector. You got to be able to rebound. And you got to have effective bigs to win at every level.
When you look at a guy like the Edie, the kid at Purdue, how do you think his game will translate to the next level?
Yeah, I've watched him. I watched him early. Purdue was one of my favorites because not only do they have Edie, who is a great low post player, great passer, really strong, but they also have guards and wings around them that know how to pass them the ball and can shoot threes. I was really missed that they got upset early. I thought they would make it to the Final Four, and I actually had them winning one of my brackets. But, he's a legit 7'4", 300-pounder, has really good hands, good touch, makes his free throws, and is a good rebounder. He's averaging, 22 or 23 and 12 rebounds. That's, but it's interesting that a lot of the NBA teams don't have him going till maybe the second round, or some not at all, which is mind-boggling. I was actually at a G League game here, watching the G League here in Las Vegas the Ignite, and I was sitting next to an NBA vice president of player personnel and scout, and we had that conversation. And I said, "Let me see this." So I watched Edie play. He's huge, big body, but he's not fast, but he's not slow either. I mean, he can move okay. So I have him as a guy that's kind of in between Yao Ming and Brooks Lopez for the Bucks. So he's not as tall as Yao was, and he's not as he can't shoot as well as Lopez. But can he learn how to shoot the three? I believe so. He's got good form on his free throws. He just wasn't allowed to. So I asked the guy. I said, "Let me see this. If you had a late first round pick and you could pick up someone that could be a Yao or a Lopez on your team, would you want him?" And he said, "Absolutely." So I'm like, "Well, why wouldn't you take a chance on this kid who's played at a high level?" So, it's kind of frustrating for me to see that. In the NBA, Purdue knows how to pass it in the post. They go through him. In the NBA, they won't do that to him, but he can work the short corners. He can pick and roll and go to the basket and catch and finish, or kick it out. He's a really good passer. So, he's as mobile as Lopez is. Lopez was up for Defensive Player of the Year and more mobile than Yao Ming was. So, I don't know. If I was in the NBA front office, I'm going to take a chance on him late in the first for sure.
Do you think, we see what the Cavs have done with the 2 7-footers and even, 3 last year. And do you think the big man is kind of coming back in the NBA right now, or are still not utilized the way they should be?
I think it is. I mean, obviously, with the Cavs, they have 7-footers that are long and athletic, and it causes problems, especially on defense. And they have skills on offense. But, I mean, the Bucks won with Lopez at 7 foot, Giannis at 6'11" or 7 foot, and Portis or someone starting at the other who's 6'8" or 6'9". So you can't tell me that size isn't effective. And, I know the NBA kind of goes in waves. Back in the day when I played early on, it was Twin Towers time with Parrish and McHale and Sampson and Hakeem and and guys tried to match that and had to. Then it was Showtime with Magic and having everybody that's 6'8", and I think it goes in kind of phases like that. But I'll tell you what, if you tell any NBA general manager, hey, will you take size and length and athleticism over skill? A lot of times they would.
Paul, I appreciate your insight and your expertise. I appreciate you joining us again, and hopefully there'll be a nice deep playoff run for the Cavs and the Bucks, and maybe they'll meet up in the playoffs and we'll be able to talk again. So thank you for your time.
I know. Just think, it looks like you got Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, and maybe Cleveland. It seems like the old days to me. It seems like the 80s.
That would work for me as long as they're in the playoffs. It feels like it's been a little while. Paul, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely enjoyed it.
Paul McKeskey, former Cavs and Bucks center who played his college basketball at Kansas, talking about, is the big man set to come back in the NBA like we've seen with the Cavs and some other teams over the last couple of years. We are up for another break. When we come back, we'll let you know 2 big guests next week. We'll let you know who they are coming up after the break.
Golf in the Mahoning Valley starts at Mill Creek Golf Course. Come out to the 36 beautiful hole design course by Donald Ross, and golf lessons are available by calling the team shop at 330-740-7112. Don't forget about family fun nights on Friday and Saturday evenings, a family of 4 with cart for only $25. Or visit the Wick Recreation Area and the lighted Par 3 course. Book your tee time today at 330-740-7112 or online at millcreekmetroparks.org.
Dr. Ashdown and Dr. Carnivus have been making Happy Feed in the Mahoning Valley for 35 years. Our offices are located in Cortland, Champion, Austintown, Columbiana, and Howland. Our Howland office has relocated to 8601 East Market Street to the top of the hill. Advanced Podiatry offers sports medicine and treatment plans for all ages. You can also request an appointment online by visiting our website at advancedpodiatry.com. Advanced Podiatry, where surgery is always a last resort.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. You can make a difference by dropping off a hot meal and saying a quick hello. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Did you miss the last Youngstown Phantoms hockey game? Catch up with the Dump and Chase podcast.
And I wouldn't say we're more physical than any standard team. It's just you don't see it in the Eastern Conference. So it's just kind of funny how they kept pointing that out like it was something to behold.
Yeah, and I mean, when a team is down 2-0, one of the first things you want to do is play a little physical and slow the game down.
The Dump and Chase podcast, Wednesdays at 5, right here on Western Reserve Radio and the iMedia1 network. Catch sports talk around the clock in the Valley on the iMedia1 network, Western Reserve Radio, Western Reserve Radio 2, and City View Sportscast.
Time to wrap up this edition of By All Means right here on Western Reserve Radio, part of the iMedia1 network. Thank you to today's guest, Richie Giuliano, the voice of YSU baseball. Make sure to check him out. Keep that name in your memory. We're going to hear him calling games on a national level here in the future. We also talked to Paul McKeskey, former Kansas center and former Bucks and the Cavs big man as well, talking a little college basketball, getting ready for the next round coming up this weekend. And before we go, can let you know, already have next week's show booked, so we can let you know who is coming on for the show next week. And our YSU theme that we've had the last couple of months will continue, as we will talk to former Penguins football defensive end Derek Rivers, who recently signed a one-year deal with the Houston Texans. And we're going to start talking to all the new high school football coaches at their new homes for the next couple of weeks. And we start things off with new Howland coach Brian Jones, who will join us coming up in the second segment of next week's show. And we're going to try and get a hold of all of the coaches about their new homes and their new jobs and their programs that they are taking over for this fall. We can remind you the show is available in podcast form. Search for By All Means. Just go to wbbw.com and click the By All Means tab in the upper right-hand corner. Tonight's show, as well as the past several, are available there for you to listen or download, or you can just follow me on Twitter at Mark_Means. That's at MARC_MEANS. That'll do it till next week when we talk to Derek Rivers and Brian Jones from Howland. For owner-operator Jim Craven, my co-host and executive producer Dave Ferris, my name is Mark Means. You've been listening to By All Means right here on Western Reserve Radio, part of the iMedia1 network.